Okay, so today I am going to change the front sprocket on my BMW F850GS, and yeah, I haven't seen any videos online of it, so I figured I'd record it. Well, actually this is attempt number 2 to record it. First one I managed to record with no audio because apparently I'm clever. Anyway, we'll get right into it. So first step on my bike is to remove the quick shift cover. And for that one it's all Allen keys, for me anyway. So we've got a 6 up here, we've got a 3 over here and a 4 there. So I'll just whip that off. Now, a little trick if you've got Allen keys deep down a hole that you can't get the short side into to use the long for leverage, is just put a shifter on the Allen key and then you get all the leverage you want. Not that that one was particularly tight, but you get the understanding. This bolt here just needs to be loosened a smidgen, just enough, and out it comes. Alright, so that now gives us access to the quick shifter, which is the next thing to remove. There's a little tiny circlip down here, and I just used a pick to curl it around off the ball joint, and then once it's curled around you can lift it up, and so it sits down in a hole and then curls around. That's a pretty simple one. And then just gently pry it off the ball stud. Doesn't require much force at all. And we can lift this one up out of the way. There we go. So now we've got 2 bolts down here behind the gear lever. We've got one up here, the big ass one there, and another one down the bottom. Oh, and one up the top here for this cover. So we'll start with the cover, which I believe is a T30. And then once the bolt's out, there's just a little ball stud down here that you've got to pull off. Of course, it doesn't want to play the game today. Sorry, my mistake. Ball stud's at the top. Then you lift it off here. There's a tab that hooks into the cover. This doesn't have to come off, so that's nice. I'll get the... So this bolt here goes into the swing arm pivot and is tight, and it's a T60, and if you're like me, it's one of the few tools you didn't have that you needed for the job, which is kind of frustrating. So not only is this one tight, it's also supposed to have Loctite on it, so that makes it even tighter. I'm just going to leave that in a couple of turns so this whole plate doesn't just fall off when all the other bolts are loose. So next up will be a T50 on these 3 bolts. So the reason I'm changing my front sprocket today is I want to give a 15 tooth sprocket a go. I'm currently running a 16, which I have done for the last 1,000 kilometers or so, and the 16 is vastly superior to the 17 in terms of acceleration and down low, just chugging along down low. I want to give the 15 a go. I think the 15 will be wonderful in the dirt, but might be just a little bit too small on the highway. So that's those 3 out. Now we've got one up here, and then obviously the big guy here that we've loosened but not removed. Now, if I recall correctly, it's that one. It is indeed, which I think is a T40. And it's the one I have that doesn't have a number on it. That doesn't help you guys much though, but I believe it's a T40. And he's out, so now we'll just take this out. There we go, you can see just the size of that bolt. And this whole cover just slides off, just be careful to remove that off there, and it's out of our way. Now you can see the sprocket, so I'm using JT sprockets. So that one in there at the moment is a JT F850GS, and I'll be replacing it with a JT F85015. JT lists both sprockets as compatible, but I will show you a little bit later in the video what the difference is. Actually, it'll be coming up very shortly. What the differences are in angles by changing the front sprocket, because obviously a smaller sprocket means it wants to bring the chain down, which puts more pressure at the pressure point here. So I'll remove this chain guard now. It's a little bit tricky. This here, you're supposed to push the pin out and through, but then it drops down inside the swing arm. But I did find that if you're just gentle with it, it did pry out okay last time. There we go. So that's just popped out. So normally you'd push the center pin out and it comes all the way out and just falls into the hole. I have to remove the pin anyway, because that's how you reinstall it. So the pin comes out, which allows these to squish down smaller. But we'll just sit the pin like that when we go to reinstall, and it allows it to push in nice and easy. And then there are two bolts, one on top of the back of the cover on top, and then one down on the swing arm further. They're just slightly off camera. I'll just remove those and we'll go from there. So those two bolts are T30s, and they're not particularly tight, because you're just holding the plastic cover in the aluminium. There's one out. The other one that hides at the back here. Now normally when you're changing the front sprocket you wouldn't need to take this cover off, but if you're doing chain and sprockets you'll definitely need to remove it, because it allows you to take the chain off without having to break the chain. So that's the cover out of the way, and just going to drop the black into gear so we can undo that front, undo the bolt in the sprocket. So that one is a 17mm nut, bolt, let's go with bolt. And of course if I use the right adapter, things go much easier. It's not particularly tight, it's fairly low torque, but it does also have Loctite on it. So, and just be careful not to lose the two washers that are on it, although I believe one is captured, the other is not. There we go. One bolt removed. And now if we were just changing the front sprocket, that's pretty much all we'd have to do. Is you can slide the sprocket off the shaft and go from there. I do need to loosen the rear axle and slide the rear wheel forwards, so I'm going to do that. But what I'll do is I'll reset the camera back up for showing you the angles here, and we'll go from there in a second.